Close your eyes for a second. Just think of that one dish that makes you know that a holiday has begun. Maybe it's the smell of garlic and onions hitting a cast iron skillet at 6 in the morning. It could be the smell of nutmeg and cinnamon coming from the oven while someone in another room bites about football. It could be a pot with something in it that has been simmering for so long that the windows are foggy. You know how it feels when you smell something and it reminds you of home, not just hunger. But here's the thing, that dish is not just food. It's a story. It's a record. It's an archive you can eat. Welcome to Edible Archives. My name is Stephen Blakely, and today we're going to talk about a question that goes beyond any recipe card. How do traditional holiday meals help families, especially those who live in modern or multicultural areas, keep their cultural identity and pass down their stories to future generations? My argument is this: holiday meals are edible archives. They are living records of family history that do three very important things. First, they turn kitchens into classrooms, which makes it easier for people to learn about other cultures through cooking together. Second, they are incredibly strong. Recipes can change and adapt to new places and situations without losing their meaning. And third, they use our sense of smell, taste, and touch in ways that make us remember things and connect us to people and places we may not have seen otherwise. We're going to go over a couple of those ideas today, and by the end, you'll never think about holiday dinners the same way again. Let's begin in the kitchen, where everything takes place. Think about the last time you cooked a holiday meal with your family. You might have been the one stirring the pot, or you might have been the kid sitting on the counter watching someone else do it. Regardless of your role, the kitchen is a space where much more than just food preparation occurs. In their book Food and Culture, Cunahan and von Esterich say that cooking together is one of the best ways for families to pass on cultural knowledge from one generation to the next. They call it a quote-unquote labor of love, and I think that's the right way to put it. Your grandmother is not just giving you a recipe when she shows you how to fold a tamale or season a pot of greens just right. She's giving you a piece of history that you won't find in any book. She's telling you who your family is, where they come from, and what matters to them. And this is not just about the food itself. According to Jessica Brader's article in The Scramble, holiday meals give people a chance to spend intentional time together. Think about that for a second. In our everyday lives, we eat fast, we eat distracted, and we eat in the car. But meals during the holidays slow things down. They bring people into the same room, around the same table, for hours. And in that space, stories come out. Uncle Marcus tells the story about the Thanksgiving when the oven broke. Grandma corrects him because he always gets the year wrong. And in the middle of all that arguing and laughing, a younger kid at the table is taking it all in and learning about the family's history without even knowing it. So the kitchen is not just where the food gets made, it's the place where culture is passed on. There are no desks or a syllabus in this classroom, but the lessons stay with you. But this is where it gets interesting. What happens when those traditions have to change? Let's say your family moves to a different country, or maybe you are a second generation kid who grew up in a city that is thousands of miles away from where your parents grew up, like myself. You can't get the same spices at the store. You don't have your great aunt's clay pot. The holiday doesn't even fall on the same calendar anymore. So your tradition is over, right? Not even close. In their textbook, Food and Culture, Kittler and her co-authors do a great job of explaining the idea. They use a model called core and fringe. Here's the idea. Every food tradition has a core, the essential ingredients, the essential techniques, and the flavors that make it that dish. And then there's the fringe, which are the flexible parts that can move around without changing the meal's identity. For example, you might switch out one kind of chili pepper for another because that's what the store has. You might use an electric stove instead of a wood fire. The fringe changes, but the core stays. And to be honest, I think this is one of the most beautiful things about food traditions. They're not fragile, they're tough. They're built to handle this kind of stress. Changing a recipe doesn't mean giving up on your culture. It shows how strong it is. They're saying we can be in a different place with different tools in a different century, and this meal can still mean something. Think about your family for a second. Is there a dish that has changed over time? There might be a meatless version of a dish that used to be all about meat because someone became a vegetarian. Maybe a shortcut got introduced. Store-bought pie crust instead of homemade. Does it still feel like the same tradition? I'm pretty sure it does, because the meaning is in the core, not the fringe. When culture changes, it doesn't go away. It keeps going in some other way. Now let's talk about an interesting topic, how our senses connect food to memories. Have you ever walked into a room, smelled something cooking, and felt like you were in a different time and place? You could be in a grocery store in 2026, but all of a sudden you're 8 years old in your grandma's kitchen on Christmas Eve. That experience has a name. It's called a Proustian moment, after the famous French author Marcel Proust, who wrote about how the taste of a small cake dipped in tea brought back a lot of memories from his childhood. In his book Remembrance of Repast, An Anthropology of Food and Memory, David Sutton says that this isn't just a poetic idea, it's how our brains really work. The parts of our brain that deal with memory and emotion are directly connected to our sense of smell and taste. That's why smell can hit you faster and harder than a picture. It doesn't first get your logical thinking brain going. It has a direct effect on how you feel, straight to memory. Sutton contends that this process is profoundly significant for cultural identity, particularly across generations. A younger person tasting a dish prepared in the same way, or close to it, for decades is not just consuming food. They are physically linking to a chain of events that has been going on for a long time. They are tasting what their parents tasted, what their grandparents tasted. Even if they can't put it into words, that experience tells them, this is who I am. This is where I'm from. And that is the bridge of senses. It's invisible, but it's incredibly strong. There's no need for words to explain a recipe. It tells you what it means on your tongue. That's why I think holiday meals are so important. Families only make that dish during the holiday season, which is a special time of year for them. And every time they do, they are making the sensory bridge stronger for the next generation. So let's put it all together. We started in the kitchen, which was like a classroom with no walls or books. Cooking together narrates stories and imparts lessons that would otherwise fade away. Then we looked at what happens when traditions have to change, and we saw that the heart of a food tradition is strong enough to last through new places, new foods, and new generations. Lastly, we talked about the amazing power of sensory memory, which is how a single taste or smell can bring back memories of people and places we carry with us. Holiday meals are edible archives. They aren't just museum pieces. They're living, changing records of a family's past. Every substitution tells a story of migration or adaptation. Every spice blend that hasn't changed tells a story of dedication. And every time a new pair of hands learns how to make the dish, the archive gets bigger, better, and more useful. So here's my challenge to you. When you sit down at a holiday table or any other family table, ask a question. Ask someone, why do we make it this way? Or who taught you this recipe? You might be surprised by what you find out because the answers aren't just about food. They're about who you are. They're about staying alive. They're about love. And I think that's always something that should be kept. Thank you so much for listening to Edible Archives. I'm Stephen Blakely, and I really appreciate you spending these few minutes with me. You can find all the sources I mentioned today on the Works Cited page. Take care of yourself, take care of your stories, and I'll catch you next time.